This video is about designing your assignments so that they truly measure your student learning outcomes. This is a process that we often do implicitly. The purpose here is to give you a framework to do it explicitly. So you start by picking a learning outcome that you want to cover. Look at what kind of learning you want to have demonstrated, whether it's knowledge, do they know the material, or can they use it on something they've already seen or something new? Or do you want them to create something? And then you want to align the assessment method to that level of learning, so to make sure that you are getting the learning demonstrated that you are actually interested in. And then you design your assessment to address this outcome at the type of learning level. You want to be sure that somewhere in your assignment you explicitly reference the learning outcome. This helps students understand what they really need to know and what they are supposed to be demonstrating. As you're looking at the assessments in the next few slides, you want to think about whether they work best for you as formative or summative assessments. Some of them can actually work well as either formative or summative. For example, a quick multiple choice quiz about early vocabulary is a great formative assessment. If you want to be able to assess whether they understand larger concepts in the long run, you can also use a multiple choice test. It really depends on your learning outcomes and your expectations. So, how do you go about picking an assessment type? You first want to think about what it is that you want them to do or to demonstrate. If you want to know whether they are understanding something, whether they can remember a list of details, you're really talking about checking their knowledge. If you want them to use it to look at a new problem, to analyze differences, to evaluate how it works, then that's what I'm calling using the material. And then finally, you might have them creating something based on what you have taught them, creating something entirely new. You want to be careful that you align things with your explicit learning outcome. So, creating a video that lists things that students understand is not a making things activity. The making should be in reference to the learning outcome. What is it that you want them to be able to make using the information that you've given them? Now we want to look at some of the possible options for each of these three types of assessments. We'll start with assignments that are good for checking knowledge. Checking knowledge is very amenable to short quizzes, multiple choice, fill in the blank, short answer. But you can also move outside of that. You could have them do a concept map. You could have them write an annotated glossary. Make a diagram that explains the process, or put a series of relevant dates on a timeline. There are lots of different ways that they can demonstrate their understanding or how well they remember a concept. These are just a few examples. There are also lots of options for using the material. Obviously, we have the standard analytical essay, and that's a very good choice. For calculation courses, you might have a problem set. A lab report is a great example of using the material. You can have them write a lab experiment. You can explain a musical composition. There are lots of ways that you can demonstrate use of it. This is a difficult thing to do with a standard test, even a standard essay test, because of this time pressure. So if you want them to be applying and analyzing, you want to construct those very carefully. I think the making category is probably the easiest to align with learning outcomes because it's fairly clear when students are making things, whether it's a research project, writing their own composition, making an art piece, and so on. It's clear that they are creating something new. The new is the important part of this. They're bringing the knowledge together and making something that is truly their own. So some analytical essays might end up in the create section. Some analytical essays would end up in the apply section or the analyze section, depending how deeply they use the analysis tools. Thinking about writing your assessments based on what you want to know will actually help you and your students get the entire class to where you really want it to go. If you have more questions about matching your assessments to learning outcomes, feel free to email us at moodlehelp@berkshirecc.edu.